Some people don't just enter a room, they absorb it. In the span of a few seconds, their brain has already registered the tension sitting quietly between two people, the smile that flickered a half-second too long, the pause buried inside an otherwise ordinary sentence. They didn't choose to notice any of it. Their mind simply did what it always does. It scanned. It recorded. It started searching for meaning. And that one difference, that inability to not notice, changes everything about how they experience being alive. You probably know someone like this, or maybe you are someone like this. They're the friend who checks on you after a group gathering because they caught something quiet in your expression that everyone else walked right past. They replay conversations late at night, not from anxiety exactly, but because their mind is still turning something over, still looking for what was real beneath what was said. They feel the emotional temperature of a room shift before any storm has a name. From the outside, this looks like depth, like emotional intelligence, like a gift. But from the inside, it feels like living in a house where every single light is permanently on, every room exposed, no corner to rest in, no darkness to disappear into, even when you're exhausted and desperately need the quiet. Psychologists have identified two distinct pathways that shape this kind of hyper-awareness. The first is biological. Research into what's called sensory processing sensitivity reveals that certain nervous systems are simply built to absorb more nuance, more emotional information, more signal beneath the noise. It isn't a flaw in the wiring, it's a different kind of wiring entirely. The second pathway is shaped by experience. When a child grows up inside emotional unpredictability, their developing brain learns something essential for survival. Watch carefully. Read the room, because missing a signal means something painful follows. The amygdala becomes sensitized. Vigilance becomes automatic. And that vigilance doesn't disappear once the environment becomes safe. It calcifies into identity. From a psychological perspective, this is not fragility. This is intelligence forged under pressure. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. Not all of it is insight. Some of it is fear. Because their mind rarely experiences genuine silence. Even in the stillness of an ordinary evening, there is a second layer running underneath everything. A friend cancels plans, and the processing begins immediately, instinctively. Was something off in my last message? Are they pulling back slowly? Is this the beginning of a distance they haven't named yet? The rational mind knows this is most likely nothing, but the aware mind has been right before, and that is precisely what makes it so difficult to quiet. They do this inward too. They don't simply feel emotions, they monitor them in real time. Sadness arrives, and before it can settle, the interrogation starts. Why this? Is this proportionate to what happened? What does this feeling reveal about me? Even joy gets examined. Even in their brightest moments, there's a part of them watching from a slight remove, making sure the experience is being processed correctly, quietly wondering how long it will last before something shifts. It's like being the audience and the performer simultaneously, never fully inside the experience, always half observing yourself living it. But this is where it starts to cost you more than you realize. Because hyper-awareness doesn't only change how you read situations, it permanently changes how you read people. Once you've spent years looking beneath the surface of human behavior, you begin to understand something that most people never consciously acknowledge. Almost every conversation carries two messages at once, the one being spoken aloud and the one being carefully hidden. Kindness sometimes arrives with unspoken conditions attached. Confidence sometimes exists as a costume worn over fear. Apologies sometimes serve the person offering them more than the person receiving. This understanding creates something that's very hard to name. Psychologists might call it the slow erosion of relational innocence. Not bitterness, not cynicism, just a quiet, irreversible shift. The ability to receive a gesture as simply itself, without wondering what lives beneath it, begins to disappear. And you grieve that without fully realizing that's what you're doing. But here is the paradox that makes this entire experience so profoundly human. The very awareness that creates the loneliness is the same awareness that creates the deepest, most genuine connection. Because people who are too aware are the ones who notice your pain before you've spoken a word about it. They remember what you mentioned once, briefly, weeks ago. They create space for your grief without requiring you to explain or justify it. They make you feel something increasingly rare in modern life, truly seen. And yet, they move through the world feeling invisible themselves. They give understanding so effortlessly that nobody thinks to ask whether they need any in return. Stop and sit with that for a moment. The person who makes everyone else feel understood is often the loneliest one in the room. Have you ever felt deeply tired in a way that sleep never fully reached? Have you ever understood someone so completely that you temporarily lost track of where they ended and you began? Have you ever felt most alone, not in empty rooms, but in crowded ones, because no one around you was seeing what you were seeing? If you have, you already understand something true and important about yourself. The problem was never that you noticed too much. The problem was that nobody taught you what to do with all of it. Awareness, at its most refined, is not a burden you were cursed with. It is a form of profound attention to life that most people will never access. If something in this video landed differently than you expected, sit with that. Subscribe so you never miss a conversation that goes this deep. And drop a comment below with the moment you first realized you notice more than you probably should. Not a story, just the moment. Someone else is going to read it and finally feel less alone.